Hello, room of actors. My name is Robert Lloyd. I'm a TV critic at the Los Angeles Times, and I love SCHITT'S CREEK. And we're going to bring on the cast right now. First, we've got Dan Levy, co-creator, and David Rose, followed by Emily Hampshire. They're just coming fast and furious. It's Catherine O'Hara, it's Annie Murphy, and it's Eugene Levy. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. This is great.
Oh yeah, turn your cell phones off, everybody on stage. So I think the episode you just saw is one that has an interesting father-son dynamic going on in there, and this is the one, I believe, where your dad is asking you for money, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And
that hug.
and so this is something. This show is something you've created together, and I'm just wondering, in this episode, particularly, were there any kinds of things coming out that you felt that were in any way reflective of your actual relationship?
Like short tempers and outbursts?
Possibly.
No, I don't know. It's just as hard to get a hug. That much I know.
Oh. I think ultimately when we wrote that, when we went sort of through that scene, you play into what you know someone will do quite well. And both of us, in this case, it was a short temper and a very combative sort of two people trying to do the same thing but going at it from two different ways. I still say pin number. And up until someone told me it was just a pin, I had no idea that that was a new and updated thing.
So the show is a learning experience for you.
I didn't know until I saw the show.
Right.
That was, yeah.
It's a learning experience for all of us, ultimately.
But how irritating is it when somebody's actually saying, no, it's pin number, when somebody else is panicking, trying to just get the numbers in, you know? Love playing that.
Are there are there moments in the production where your father might feel a little paternal to you at times, and
On set?
Yeah.
During production? No.
Just
No.
do a bad take, and he comes
No.
over and slaps my wrist and tells me it's. No, I think we've had
the
to
opposite.
separate family from professionalism for everybody's sake. You know, I think you go into it, and I also think we both share a very specific idea of what the show is. So I think both sort of being in that groove, it's rarely.
It is strangely professional. I mean, it is, you know, you never hear, you know, hey, Dad, come over here, Dad. You're never going to hear that on set. And, you know, and the same thing with me. Hey, son, I love that take. Good one, son. And we don't really get into that. It's all very kind of professional. Uh-oh.
I'm going to say it. Catherine and I love this so much. There are extraordinarily beautiful moments that happen when either Dan or Sarah are acting, and Eugene's not in the scene with them, but he's behind the monitors, watching the monitors like this and mouthing their lines with them like a dance mom, like in the background, just like it's so beautiful, and he's so proud of them.
Then I saw the opposite. I was doing a scene with Eugene, and you had given him a note, and he went and he executed the note, and then he looked up like for approval from you, and you were texting on your phone. It was the saddest thing.
There's a lot to do in a day. But no, I mean, we have a lot of fun with it, and I think, you know, first of all, I don't give a lot of notes to my dad. Let me just put that out for all the people being like, who the hell does this kid think he is? You know, but yes, it's in the rare occasion.
You've actually given some good notes.
Good.
Yes, no,
Thank you.
it does come through with a note, you know, very hesitant.
It usually
But,
involves like lingering around in the background for a little bit and then like a tap.
Yeah,
if,
no, his notes are good. They're really good.
So,
To jump back farther in history, Eugene and Catherine both come out of the Second City in Toronto. And it's interesting, this is completely a side note, but when you're reading it, when you're researching the Second City, you notice that there is a "the" in front of the Second City, and everybody else it just sort of says Second City. So is that, what do you guys consider proper?
I guess when you talk about it, you just say Second City. We were at Second City. The theater is actually called the Second City, as Chicago was the second city to New York. It originally is where the name came from.
Right. So they never thought of calling the Toronto one the third city.
No.
Anyway, you come out of an improv sketch comedy world, which now is kind of almost the main sort of source and more modality in TV comedy. A lot of people now come through the UCB and things like that, whereas for a while it was very much stand-up was kind of the thing. So and you come out of the sort of early days of that. What did that teach you in terms of things that you've brought through the rest of your career that's not on stage doing improv?
Well, you're encouraged to think on your feet, which is good in life. And you're encouraged to pick up on a conversation, which is good in life. They're all great life skills. I've always told people to take the classes just for life. But it's also, you learn scene structure. Because the sketches that you do, outside of the games that you play, the improv games, the actual sketches that we would build to build the next show, it was all about scene structures and scene structure and character and, give and take, working off of each other, which is useful, as I keep saying, in life, and even more so in work. Yeah, so it's, and when if you do start playing around with a scene that has a great script to begin with, like there's scenes in this show, if you play around a bit, from training from Second City and work like that, you realize what's important in the scene and where the scene needs to go and what's happening with the other characters. It's not just like, I think I'll try this, you do it within the boundaries of the scene.
It really was the greatest school of comedy that you can, possibly go into, and the ground rules for comedy were just, quite amazing, because those are the rules you hang on to no matter what you're doing. Rules as simple as always play at the top of your intelligence level. Whether you're doing the cheapest thing in the world, play it smart. And whether you're talking about acting or whether you're talking about writing, I mean, the improvisational nature of the Second City, it gives you a good sense as to, scene, as Catherine said, scene building, scene structure. When you're in a scene, either writing it or acting it, you just have your antennae are up, and you get a sense as to what the entire thing is and where it should be going, and whether the direction is the right direction. You just get a strong sense. We were very fortunate the Second City came to Toronto in 1973, because it's hard to think of where we would be comedically if we hadn't been in Second City. the Second City.
Can you tell when you when you're playing opposite somebody if they've had that kind of training? Does it you sort of just like a little light go on? You can see in each other's eyes that they have that thing that they come out of a sketch background or thinking on their feet background like that.
Certainly Second City.
Yeah, certainly the Second City, and some people just have it naturally too. I think it's they're naturally gifted in that way, and I think people with this is generalizing, but with a more generous spirit kind of in their work, I think you see it that way. I think as opposed to maybe the stand-up comedians going to work who have had to take care of themselves, out of survival. In Second City, you learn to lean on each other and give and take. So, you're taking care of the other characters as much as you are yourself. It's an awareness, I think, of others, which again is good in life.
Emily, you've had everybody on here on stage is Canadian, I should say. And one thing is that so some of us are just becoming aware of some of you for the first time, but you've had a very, very long career since you were a child, I guess. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background and your traumatic childhood and whether this is helping or hurting?
Well, now that I have a job, it's helping. But
well, you have 2 jobs right now.
I do have 2 jobs. It's a good year. But it wasn't for a while. But no, I've been an actor since I was 14. I did my first film and in Canada, which I think what's good about Canada is that you can be a working actor for so long and get to be the lead in 10 movies that nobody sees, so you don't nobody gets sick of you or nobody, that kind of thing. So, but you get to hone your craft a lot. Like you can be a jobber there, which I think I was. I've never had a job other than acting, which I feel so fortunate about. But there's been times I should have just gotten a job because really I had no money. But I had no skills. So thank God I did this. And but ironically, Schitt's Creek came after a long dry spell, and Schitt's Creek was the thing that saved me. And then I got 12 Monkeys, and so yeah.
The characters that you're playing in those 2 shows are so diametrically opposed. I mean, Stevie is a character who is reluctant to engage at all, right? On any kind of level, she's a big wall in terms of that. What's it like playing somebody that's kind of that, whose refusal is their basic sort of starting point?
I mean, I love playing Stevie. We were just talking about this the other day. I admire her so much that when people will come up to me on the street and be like, I love Stevie, I love her so much, I'm like, me too, me too. And then I feel like I'm such a disappointment because they're not getting Stevie. But no, it's funny that you say her wall, because I feel totally the opposite about Stevie. I feel like she is always just so blatantly honest and sees that she's an observer a lot of the time, and so I don't feel like she puts up a wall. I feel like she is, I don't know what the word is, but I just think she's a fascinating and fantastic human being. So.
And Annie, the first time I talked to Eugene and Catherine had said that you were at a point in your career where you were thinking of stopping, and that you'd been going out for a lot of drama that wasn't working out for you.
Not funny, guys. It's really dark. No, it's weird. I feel like,
why didn't we have each other?
I know. Emily and Jen Robertson, were all at places really kind of the end of our rope in career. I also had a huge dry spell just before this. My house had burned down. I was.
It's not
you came
that
home
funny.
from vacation.
I was.
That's about as dry as it gets, I think.
Literal ash. And I was out in LA doing pilot season, which was so scary for me, and I just ruined my first big test, my first test I was so excited about, and I just went in and just botched the audition, and had a big cry, had a big old snotty cry, drove out to the Pacific Ocean and took off all of my clothes and cried in the ocean. And did you say you've been there?
That was so specifically an Annie thing.
And then 2 days later, I got the audition for this old show, which saved me too.
I was divorced, homeless. Yeah. My house didn't burn down.
But is it true that comedy wasn't something that you had really been headed toward? You'd been sort of...
I'd always really wanted to head towards comedy, but up until this show, I'd really only been going out for drama. Even though I'd been asking my agents to send me out for comedy, I didn't have anything on my reel, and so I didn't think I could do it very well. And thankfully, I got this audition, and that's where I want to keep heading, hopefully.
I do think, too, the interesting thing in terms of the casting process for the show, and I was in the room when Annie first came in, I feel like I've done enough pilot seasons to just, you sort of think, well, is it me? Is it them? Who is it? It's certainly not me, a lot. But, there is something to be said about being the person. When the job is the right job, you will walk in and you will be the person. For the part of Alexis, we were looking at a lot of people who interpreted the sides in a very stereotypical way. You're dealing with a socialite, so I think naturally a lot of people's impulses would be to present a character that they think you want. And I think the amazing thing about what Annie did is that she came in and presented a character that she wanted. And that was it. I knew from the minute she walked in the room, which is, we're talking about things that the show has done for these people. Every member of our cast has done so much for the show. And to the sigh of relief, knowing that someone has come in and you can stop your search, is a pretty amazing thing, because casting is really, really difficult. And I think a lot of times nowadays you look at shows and you think, okay, well, you can almost pinpoint the failure of the show on the casting. It was impulsive, it was mandated, it was, a handful of notes that came down, and they're looking for certain types of people as opposed to letting the people speak for themselves. So if you find a great casting...
room full of actors.
A room full of actors. I do feel like the right casting agent or director will see you for who you're bringing into the room, and not vice versa. So.
And who was your casting director? Was it someone that you felt obviously had a real sense, or did you know? Did you have obviously you probably thought your dad was going to be in it.
Yeah, we tossed the name around. Yeah, we.
I had a particularly good audition myself. I felt quite good about it. I actually felt I was the person when I walked in.
But they wanted a Eugene Levy type. Yeah.
I think I nailed it.
But we worked with the casting. We worked with a man named John Comerford out of Canada, a big sort of casting guy, and even in that process, I sat in the room, and then we would send the tape to my dad, and we saw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And it's interesting because I feel like casting will have an idea of what the part is, but it really comes down to, in our case, it was my dad and I who had conceived of the idea, and we were allowed the freedom to cast who we wanted to cast. And we didn't have 1,000 network notes. And from that, we were able to really look at everyone who walked in the room objectively. And fortunately, people came in and were these characters. Emily came in and was Stevie. It was a different Stevie than I had imagined in my head when I wrote it. It was a better Stevie. And I think when you cast the right people, they will take the character one step farther, two steps farther, a mile ahead of where you even had hoped they would go. And in our case, once we saw the show come together, and once we had that first day on set, for me it was like electrifying, because you see a group of people elevating material that you have spent so hard sort of toying over and thinking, are we making the right choices in terms of story? And then you think, okay, well, it's in the safest hands now. So there was a giant sigh of relief, I think.
This is a show in which clothing counts for a lot, and
Talking about Stevie, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, she's making a statement, I think, with what she wears. But watching it, I asked Catherine about this the other day, but watching this, it feels that I'm looking at things that have been invented as if I were watching a science fiction film at times. But this is all this is stuff, right? This is all real designer clothing that anybody in this room that worked enough could go out and buy.
I think they call it expensive stuff.
Yes, if they so choose.
Right.
I don't know if many people would. I mean, wardrobe plays an incredible part in the show because, it's a narrative that you don't have to articulate. It's a visual representation of where these people have come from. So it doesn't require all the, exposition that goes into, constantly reminding an audience, oh, these people came from money. And then, you sit down with the amazing Catherine O'Hara, and she gives you a reference. And you look at it and say, all right. It was, at the time, Daphne Guinness, who is that was sort of the jumping off point. She's an heir to the Guinness beer lager. What is it? Something dark. Something like an amber ale or something. Anyway, she's very high concept, and she's, a lot of like Alexander McQueen and like intense hairstyles and,
Armor. A lot
Armor.
of really well structured and jewelry that looks like defensive jewelry. But you and Deb Hansen, our costume designer, actually made it come true, because it's one thing to have that conversation. Oh, I imagine it this way. Oh, I imagine it. Yes, yes. And you all seem to be in agreement. And this happens with story and everything, but with a look, you can take it so personally, and everyone's oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you get to your first wardrobe fitting, and the stuff on the rack is like, what? What happened to the people I was talking to before?
You said armor, and
yeah,
they literally put you in armor.
Yes, that would work. But in this case, the rack was just like, usually I don't want to try things on. I was like, no, thanks. Oh, I guess I'll take that sweater. Try that sweater for 3 seconds and get it off me. And now it's like, what else can I try? Just the coolest, most fun wardrobe. And not only does it remind the audience of who we think we are and who we were, but for my character's sake, it reminds me every day that I am only here temporarily, and I'm back to my other real life moment, tomorrow, so I'm ready, And you are the businessman. You are always the elegant, wonderful businessman in your suits.
I actually think wardrobe, for the most part, is often overlooked in TV. I think people think this is a type, and this is the nerd, and this is the cool person, and nobody really thinks about what is the style of this person. I think there's so much fun to be had in terms of wardrobe, because what people wear speaks so much about who they are and what they believe in and what they want for themselves and what they want to project. So,
Like a sweater with a snake on it.
with the sweater, listen, I don't know. Ultimately, I guess I'm telling everyone that I'm poisonous, but for us, it was really, really important, and we eBay every single day of the year. We eBay every single piece of clothing on the show, because a Canadian budget does not afford Alexander McQueen. So you have to really scounge. And is scounge a word? No, it's not. Scrounge. It's been a long day, friends.
Scavenge, scrounge.
You work hard, and for us it's worth it because what it does is you're able to elevate the show to this different level.
I'm going to, there's some cards here from the audience. I'm going to jump over to one, and this is from Vicky Abelson, is that right? And this question is to everybody, so everybody take a crack at it. And it's, who makes you laugh above all others? And I think it's probably politic not to mention anybody on the stage.
You mean anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world. Well, she can actually clarify since it's her question.
Wow.
Too many people. Too many. Steve Martin, Martin Short.
Mine's John Cleese and Faulty Towers.
Yeah. Oh, Monty Python. Yes.
Yeah, Python, for sure. Yeah, gee, I don't know. There's
John
so...
Oliver.
Who?
Sorry, John Oliver.
John Oliver's good. Norm
Steve Carell?
Macdonald. Norm Macdonald makes me laugh. Chris Farley used to make me laugh.
Amy Schumer.
And Tina.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Tina
And Amy.
Fey, Amy Poehler.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
News bloopers make me laugh so much. I could spend all night watching news bloopers or Family Feud bloopers, like any of those things of real life people. And Annie's house burning down.
Kind of like a news blooper. Annie, anything make you laugh that would, get back at Emily?
We can't say that.
Nothing
out
that I can
loud.
say on stage. No, I won't.
Set
I won't
in the
go
makeup
there.
trailer, stays in the makeup trailer.
Dan?
I've spoken too much tonight.
Just
These
the name.
guys,
Yeah, I
everybody on stage.
Put the mic down.
Makes me laugh. Everybody on stage makes me laugh, and this show is the reason. We set out to make a character-driven show, and these are the people who have created the characters that have made the show as much as we had hoped it would be in terms of can the audience relate and have an emotional involvement with these characters. And I think this cast has really come through in such a big way, made the writing of the show so much easier because no matter what you give these people, you know what I mean? And when I say these people, I mean you. It just turns to gold. I mean, it's just absolutely great. These are the greatest, actors assembled in one cast. I can't believe we have everybody here.
And just to touch back on the casting thing, we were talking about comedy versus drama. I think we don't ever look at the show like it's a comedy. I think when we came to plotting it out, every time we've discussed it, every time we've talked about character arcs, they're not, the objective is never to say, okay, well, what is the funny choice here? It's always what is the most interesting choice. And I think when you have such a strong cast and when you have such a bizarre situation, that combination is what creates the humor in this scenario, and not necessarily the line. Sure, there's bizarre things that people say, but the humor has always come from almost the fact that these characters play it completely straight. There's never, you're not playing into any lines, you're not playing into any jokes. And that, I think, is the funny thing, because we're talking about comedy, but I very much view a lot of these performances as like dramatic performances that are funny.
That's what I find funny usually. Yeah. And I remember I had a manager once who told me that people don't find me funny. And I think it's because I laughed. But I think that's what I find this show funny because of that. I find CSI funny.
as do millions. When you came back for a second year, what were you excited about, each of you, in places where you could go, things you'd learned in the first year, and opportunities that having a new year allowed you and to move on into new and interesting places for everybody here?
I was only scared. Because on Moira's behalf, I was like, we're still here. I was just waiting to see what the storylines would bring.
Because, I mean, you know, both David and Alexis are, I don't want to say mature in this
Neither do I.
season.
No, that would be
But they
wrong.
have jobs.
They're my babies.
They're acting sort of responsible. They're accomplishing sort of good things for people that aren't themselves. I mean, it's
Baby steps, very small baby steps.
Yeah, I think the fun part is establishing something that is, I mean, they were so disconnected in the first season, and the characters really, you know, didn't know who they were, let alone who they were to each other. I think specifically David and Alexis, because they had been born into this life. I think Johnny and Moira have had experiences that didn't involve extreme wealth. So to play the David and Alexis characters, I mean, you're riding a fine line because you're trying to keep them real, and you're trying to, I think, hopefully, if we succeeded in having an audience feel for their displacement, I think, because choosing to not make it be the family's fault why they lost their money. They weren't crooks, they weren't, you know, it happened to them, and they didn't ask for this, and they're struggling, and that struggle is real, and they didn't, you know, they're trying their best, considering they're so far from what they know. Very far from what they know. So, you know, for David and Alexis, it was really just wading into what real life is slowly and surely. And, you know, I've said it before. I think the biggest thing about season 1 moving into season 2, and we're shooting season 3 right now, I think first and foremost think that it's an exploration of love. I think, you know, you're dealing with a family that didn't quite know what love was. I think they knew in certain ways that by giving a gift, that was love. I think their ideas and their attachments to the premise of what love is shifts from season to season. And as we write, I think that's the most fascinating and interesting part for us, is really to just see these people realizing what actual love is, whether it's within the family or whether it's friendships or relationships. So that's, you know, that's been fun.
What's the family like, this family like together, working?
This family?
Yeah.
Or this
No, the
family?
whole, the five member family, and any of the absent members of the show, including, I should say, your sister, Sarah, who's on the show as
Twyla.
What's the set like?
This is the family we all wish we had. But, well, like coming back to season 2, I was so excited about coming back because I didn't realize how great it was season 1 that we had it until I'd done another show, and then come back and realize what an amazing environment it is, like shooting with, and it comes from the top, like you and your dad are, everyone is so generous on this set, and it's, you all feel like we're all part of a family. It kind of does feel that way.
On both sides of the camera too, like the whole crew is amazing. They are fans of the show themselves, and it's just great when you're doing a scene and you look over and you just see like the cameraman's shoulders just softly trembling, so he's like trying to keep in the laughter. Yeah, it's a really, really wonderful vibe on this set.
And the bits they think of, if you have props, I mean, this is true
Yeah.
in a lot of shows, I'm sure, but if you have props, maybe a notepad, the scribbling on it will be
Oh,
so
God.
like you wish you'd thought
So
of it yourself.
thoughtful.
It's just crazy. It just came from props. And they don't mention it, and then later goes, I can't believe what you did. Oh, you saw that? Yeah, good, okay, yeah.
They gave me a
Very
cell
cool.
phone for Stevie, and I had contacts in it. And like, you were one of my contacts in my phone. That stuff, I
Really
look at that
thoughtful.
every day of the, yeah. One friend.
It's about as easygoing a set as I've ever been on. I mean, we had a lot of fun on SCTV doing that show, and that was, clearly a case of the inmates running the asylum, and it was, it was just great fun, and, we were younger and, just loved working 19-hour days. And, but it was always fun. It was always like having a lot of laughs and then going home for dinner. And this set is the same way. It's a very, very easygoing set, and just and I do love that about the set, and love the fact that it's we can say it's our show. Like, how much fun are we having on the on the set? How much fun are we having on the show? Well, if you're doing a comedy, you should be having a good time,
But CBC and Pop both have really trusted you guys to do the show you have in mind too. And I don't know why more people don't do that. More producers, more networks. Just if you're going to give a show to somebody talented, let them do what they do and let them rise or fall on their talent.
Absolutely.
It's a very good example of it working, I think.
It is. There's been a lot of freedom, I think, and as you don't take it lightly because you hear horror stories, and a lot of my friends are writers and who have had shows picked up, and by the time it actually gets to air, if it gets to air, the show that's going on television is the polar opposite of what they intended the show to be, and you think, gosh, well, what's the intention here? You're not interested in the idea. You're interested in how an idea fits into a mold that you want to make, and that does not breed creativity or, in my opinion, a successful piece of content. So for us, we've had a lot of freedom, and I also think, it sounds very, hippy-dippy, but every member of our team loves being there, which is a wonderful thing. And for me, and for Annie, I'm going to speak on your behalf. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
We didn't have as much experience. And in my case, I had done one movie where I was terrified the entire time. It's a very scarring experience. But to walk into a place where you are met with generosity, not just from actors, but from your crew, from the entire team, it allowed me to feel comfortable enough to try out who this character was. And I think if that wasn't the case, I don't know where I'd be, because I think David came from a feeling of being welcomed into a community. And I think the minute that you impose something on an actor and make them feel uncomfortable or unwelcome or undervalued, it's going to change the quality of the performance because you don't feel free. And that is the most amazing thing, I think, for me. I'm going to,
Daniel?
Correct him.
I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. For the first day, this was, Annie and I were sitting on a bed, our very first scene, opposite my dad and Catherine. I had
Shitting our pants.
Literally, it was a dark,
perfectly
so
honest.
You think, had they not been so generous with their time and with their energy and their patience, we would probably have not felt as comfortable to be who we were.
We didn't need to be generous. You guys are great. And I love how when you're all in character, it's an equal playing field. There is no, I never thought of having more. I know I was older, but
That is good.
but it's true, isn't it? I mean, I know I'm older, so I've been around longer, but I never thought of us as being more experienced at all. You, David, you're Alexis. That's what's so nice about acting.
Well,
Since I'm the motel, bring you
Well,
your
you're
towels,
different.
then I'm lower. That's why I feel that on set, right?
we were doing a scene in the cafe a while ago, and Jennifer, who plays Jocelyn, was, in between takes, the four of us are just the family. Sorry, you weren't there. You're behind your desk in the motel, but we're Jennifer as Jocelyn comes into the scene, and so then between scenes she was waiting over there, and we're all just And Eugene looked over and said, Jennifer, you're allowed to join the family if you like. It's okay. But that happens on a set there. No matter
Yeah,
what the
she would-
dynamic, it kind of is true off camera too. I don't know. It just
Yeah, it
seems
is
to-
weird.
and
She
Nobody's
was-
method,
yeah,
but it just kind of yeah.
She was
being very-
waiting. She was just waiting over by the counter while the scene was taking place at the booth. And then every time the scene, she'd come over, do the scene. And then when the scene was over, between lighting setup, she'd go back to the counter, and she's waiting back by the counter. I said, Jennifer, you can come over. You can hang with us.
Well, thanks. I think that's a lovely, sweet place to end. And we've come to the.
There's a
we've
lot
come to
more
the-
we've got to say.
I know, but. Dan Levy, Emily Hampshire, Catherine O'Hara, Annie Murphy, and Eugene Levy.
And thank you to you.
Thank you.
Gotta go.